players are 8-2. Pretty important match for each of them as Braun Duin, especially number 3 on our Season 1 leaderboard, looking to qualify for the Players' Championship at the end of the year. A shambling vent is where Braun will start things. Hymel will sacrifice the flooded strand, get himself a sunken hollow. Plenty of time to finish this game, one would assume. Eric on the play here, so he'll take his second turn. A Canopy Vista and a passing of the turn. To BBD we go. It'll be a Jace. Flooded Strand going to search up an island. For Eric, an Elvish Visionary. He'll draw. And he's just going to miss his land drop past the turn back.
You and I were doing the same thing.
Counting how many lands they play?
Because this happened to Eric Hawkins, too.
Yep.
And this deck is not effective when it stalls on lands. I know that's true of all decks to varying degrees, but this one especially so.
24 lands in Eric's build.
Especially in these post-board games, because you have to get out in front of your opponent to some degree before they are able to hold up a wall of counter spells or duress the spells out of your hand. If you fall behind, your opponent's going to be able to pick apart your creatures and then leave up mana to counter your copies of Rally or Collected Company.
Braun activating a Jace here, trying to figure out what he wants to discard, which means that his hand is pretty good if he's having this difficult of a decision. Discarding a Treasure Cruise. And now Polluted Delta is going to be sacrificed. And now there's Tasigur.
And I like this angle here from BBD, especially he has Negate in his hand, so he can cover the top end if that shows up. Just get this game over with while Hymel's kind of floundering around here.
There's a Catacomb Sifter. That'll bring a Eldrazi Scion along with it. I'll tell you one card that doesn't want to be hit by Reflector Mage. Tasigur.
Oh, yeah, that's... Bounce spells are pretty good against Tasigur to begin with. I guess the extra text doesn't really matter because your opponent can't recast Tasigur most of the time anyway.
It's very unlikely.
They're going to need at least one more turn.
So Eric finding a land, able to start building his board. An activation of Jace here from Braun. Picked up a copy of Polluted Delta. We'll see what land he wants to discard. There goes Shambling Vent. There's Polluted Delta. And now passing of the turn. So Tasigur activation at the ready. Notable, Braun not attacking with Tasigur there at all.
Well, he doesn't necessarily want to damage race right now. And also, Hymel's got some good chump blocks because he has a copy of Catacomb Sifter. So I think BBD is sort of taking this approach of, I can kind of hang back, activate Tasigur, make sure that Hymel can't attack me effectively, and accrue some advantage that way.
Elvish Visionary was where Eric started his turn. Then I'll sacrifice the Eldrazi Sound for a mana. Scry, put the top card to the bottom. Tap that Sunken Hollow. Zillipore Cutthroat is the play. And pass the turn back over to Braun. Smoldering Marsh is the land Braun has found off of his Polluted Delta. And no Tasigur activation just yet because he doesn't have the necessary mana to do so. Kolaghan's Command, however, he can play. And he will play. Looks like he's going to make Eric discard a card. It'll be a Nantuko Husk that goes to the graveyard. Eric will get the Scry because his Zillipore Cutthroat was killed. Top card going to go to the bottom from that Scry, thanks to the Catacomb Sifter. And now we go back Braun's way. 3 cards in the graveyard here for Braun. He'll draw. Picked up a copy of Treasure Cruise. He'll activate Jace. Bloodstained Mire the draw. And now he's going to go into the tank. A little bit of thinking to do because now, you know, Eric missed a land for, I think, just a single turn. things looked a little bit different. But now he's starting to hit lands. His deck's starting to operate a little bit. So we're working ourselves into a real game here.
Yeah, you start asking yourself some questions of, are there any creatures that I'm especially concerned about that I need to leave removal back for in my hand? There's no way that BBD's touching any of his negates. He needs to keep himself protected from Rally the Ancestors and Collected Company. But the selection on what removal spells he keeps and what he feels comfortable discarding, this is where it starts to get a little more complicated.
Looks like Eric just going to play a land pass the turn back. Brian basically did the same thing. He discarded a Mystic Monastery, played a Bloodstained Mire, and kicked it over. So now Eric is basically playing as though he has Collected Company in hand. And Brian does have a negate, so this will kind of constrict the plays here for each player. Here's an activation of Jace. Eric will sacrifice his Windswept Heath. A Plains on the way. And now here's Collected Company. I don't think much of a surprise here to see this buy out a negate.
Yep.
And now Jace is going to activate. Roast was the draw.
I mean, that's a very easy negate here because BBD is not in a position where he needs to worry about Rally the Ancestors right now. So Collected Company is the premier spell for him to fight over.
And there goes Roast. Jace is going to transform into Telepath Unbound. 5 counters to start, of course.
I think Brian has boarded in and drawn a copy of Infinite Obliteration, which is kind of a controversial card. Some people like it in this kind of matchup. Some people feel like this deck is sort of focused around being a creature value deck first and a combo deck second, and then Infinite Obliteration isn't very good. But it would not surprise me, especially now with a Jace flip, for BBD to start being very aggressive, stripping some of the combo cards out of Hymel's deck.
Infinite Obliteration is interesting because now he can start by taking Nantuko Husk. Obviously can't take a card like Rally or Collected Company, but maybe you start with Husk, then maybe you work your way towards Jace or something like that.
I could see the mixture of cards being Nantuko Husk and Zulport Cutthroat.
Okay.
Then Hymel has to beat you in combat. There's really no other route for him to go, and this deck is going to be hard-pressed to be able to beat BBD in combat. But there's a lot of different routes. That's my first instinct. But if you're casting a bunch of copies of Infinite Obliteration, there's multiple combinations of cards you can strip out of the deck to make things very hard.
A Murderous Cut's going to go after Tasigur here. And there is a Sunken Hollow.
I'm not sure if Brian has any designs on casting Infinite Obliteration and flashing it back and casting it again. He may only be looking to cast it once on something like Nantuko Husk or Zulport Cutthroat.
And now here's another negate. So Brian is valuing this Tasigur very highly. And now there is another copy of Murderous Cut. So Tasigur down, whether Brian likes it or not. And now we're going to head back over to Brian. Reaching for mana already. Curious to see what his turn's going to be. I know he picked up another copy of Treasure Cruise. I think he might be trying to figure out what he wants to delve away, if anything. Looks like he's going to cruise for 2 mana and lose 6 cards. So Bloodstained Mire. A bunch of lands there. Mystic Monastery, Shambling Vent, a fetch land. Looks like 2 negates.
And if BBD is leaving himself with 3 mana left over here and tapping 2, I suspect that means he wants to cast Infinite Obliteration this turn.
Picked up a copy of Soulfire Grandmaster along with Fiery Impulse there. Keep in mind he has not played a land just yet this turn. There's Infinite Obliteration. This is what you thought would happen. And we'll get confirmation on what it's naming here in just a moment. He's going to go after Nantuko Husk to start.
And what's really nice about taking Nantuko Husk out of the deck is now a lot of the rallies are dead ends, because unless you're doing something overwhelming with the rally, everything gets exiled after the fact. So you lose everything. The Nantugo Husk is the thing that puts everything back in the graveyard and gets you ready for the second copy of Rally. And without having a sack outlet and not really a graveyard to speak of, the rallies that are in Hymel's hand are worth very little right now.
And that's the only cards that Eric has in his hand. 2 rallies. He does have double white there in Plains and Canopy Vista, so he can cast it. But as you mentioned, they've gotten a lot worse now.
Yes.
I think that's kind of the goal when you're playing a deck like Jeskai Black, is either counter the rallies or make it so the rallies just aren't good.
Well, you know, we've seen this as a recurring pattern so far throughout this tournament as people try to attack this rally deck. And it's going to be important to learn these lessons because this deck looks like it's going to be very prevalent, at least early on in the format. If you have spot removal for the synergistic creatures and ways to attack the spells in the deck, be it counter spells, discard spells, or infinite obliterations to take the sting out of those cards, the deck is not left with a whole lot to operate with, and we've seen it over and over again. These blue decks post-board have been very punishing towards Rally.
Oh, there is a Painful Truths. 3 cards coming. Prairie Stream and Tassiger among them.
With the game going like this, it's even reasonable. I don't think it's going to end up coming down to this for a variety of reasons, but Brian may be able to set this game up where he kills him with a Jace emblem because there's just no pressure coming from the other side of the deck.
Oh, Jace is going up to 7.
And
so
now
that's reasonable thought.
With the Jace on Catacomb Sifter and the Soulfire Grandmaster in play, Hymel has no attacks. His hand has nothing going on. I think there's probably more efficient routes for BBD to end the game, and it may be more efficient for him to use Jace to flashback certain spells, but the point is he's taken all the wind out of Hymel's sails here with the various counter spells and infinite obliterations that he cast this game. And the rally deck, for all of its power, is pretty anemic when it's not able to lean on its linchpin cards.
Jace is moving up.
And I think BBD might be going for the emblem this game because he's not casting anything. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes, you know, emblem, spell, just knock your deck out.
Mill 20 cards.
Right, we're done.
I'll find some more spells. One of my spells is Tassiger. That gets me more spells. One of my other cards that I have in the battlefield is Soulfire Grandmaster. That lets me loop spells.
Yep.
And then milling you out is trivial from there. Link to Spell may have been the draw here for Eric. Here comes Elvish Visionary. And Brian will let it fall down to 7. Brian, let's take a look, see what's going on in that graveyard.
Yeah, not even trading with the Elvish Visionary, not even allowing Hymel to turn his Rally the Ancestors into a divination.
Looks like Soulfire Grandmaster is going to go active. And now here's Kolaghan's Command. And Dispel will take care of that. So no nonsense with that card. Time to draw. Copy of Flooded Stream. Right now for Eric, just 2 copies of Rally the Ancestors in hand. Jace will move up. Soulfire Grandmaster is going to come in. Now here's a Rally. And it's kind of a baby Rally, but it is for 3.
Baby is, even that's being generous here.
It's not a good one.
This is draw a card and drain or whatever. Drain
Yeah.
for 1, basically.
Maybe get the Scry. Well, Brian can't say he didn't know this was coming. He knows his opponent's hand. Yeah, Elvish Visionary, his Illiport Cutthroat. And Rally, upon its resolution, should get exiled if memory serves. Be too good if it went to the graveyard.
It would probably combine with creatures that get spells back. That's my guess.
Kolaghan's Command.
I don't know. I'm not on their development team.
I understand.
But I'm guessing.
I understand.
In concert with Eternal Witness type of creatures,
Oh,
that it would be problematic.
that would not be good for the game. I see.
It's already busted with Jace, and Jace only sort of works with it. That's good enough.
Yeah. Time for Eric to scry. Now Brian going to sacrifice a Flooded Strand, it looks like. Actually, I think, yeah. Yeah, it's a sacrifice, okay. That's a sacrifice and a... Is that a whiff?
I'm guessing he's running out of lands here, and he's just casting a Tassiger.
Okay.
It's like a Lotus Petal for a Del card or whatever.
Sure. That's a new one even for me. Players appear to still have plenty of time left to play. 10 minutes or so left to go. A Jace, a Zilliport Cutthroat out there, and a passing of the turn. Brian can pick these apart, assuming he has removal, and he does have Jace to recast at least a Roast. There's a Polluted Delta. And Brian will dig out another land here.
And when the synergies are not firing for the rally deck, it is a bunch of... The creatures are a bunch of fourth picks from a booster draft. They are not constructed staples.
Yeah. Here's 4 mana. Let's make it 5, which leaves me with Soulfire Grandmaster has been activated. Hiya! Zilliport Cutthroat down. Braun will get to gain some life, of course, because that spell has lifelink. And it has spell mastery, so it's 3 life, not 2. Eric will get to scry, leave that card on top. Fire away on Jace. He'll lose the Fiery Impulse this time, but still gain the 3 life. And now Jace will go down to 5. And now here's Infinite Obliteration, which I like a lot because, 1, it's going to take care of something that Brian cares about, but 2, it makes Eric shuffle his deck.
It's a wash.
Yeah.
Because it gives the deck a whole wash.
And he's going to name Zilliport Cutthroat with it.
So this was my prediction several turns ago about the creatures that would ultimately end up getting named. Just because now Rally does very little and non-combat damage is no longer an option. Now Hymel's got to just brawl with things like Tassiger, Soulfire Grandmaster, and Spot Removal, and his deck is just not equipped to win that sort of fight.
Well, Eric doesn't have much going on anymore. That's for sure. And now we head back BBD's way. Hymel just passed the turn back.
I don't even know if Hymel has any cards left that qualify as functioning cards in this spot.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, if he draws Collected Company, who cares? What are you even going to do with it? Utter End with buyback, sure. Here come the beatdowns. There's a block. It's getting ugly now. Dispel the draw.
Timely.
Yeah.
A timely dispel.
Yeah. Here come the beatdowns yet again. Been a pretty one-sided game, honestly. Brian crafted a game plan that really worked here.
Well, when Hymel missed his initial land drops, that was kind of the end of it, because often, game 1 at least, Rally can go ahead and fall behind early on, but use Collected Company and Rally to catch up. Post-board in these kind of matchups, when you're facing down a bunch of counter spells, that's just not the case anymore. You need to get something going early on, because your Rallies and Collected Companies are unlikely to resolve.
An Eternal Pilgrim, just another target here for a removal spell. Eric does have a Dispel in his hand, and he will cast it, but that is going to do it. Brian Braun is going to win this match here over Eric Hymel. 2-1. Jeskai Black going to take care of 4-color Rally for Brian. He moves on to 9-2 with his build of Jeskai Black. Different from other ones that we've seen. For Eric, he'll slide down to 8-3, but still